Indigenous people had a better understanding of crime than so-called civilized societies. Many indigenous societies, especially those under anarchist principles, had a better understanding of crime and have a less crime rate than nation states and hierarchical society as a whole. Examples I will give you are the Antamanse, who, according to Vishanti Pata, in times of dispute, women are instrumental channels of negotiation resolution. Dispute resolution continue to be marked by fisting. And the Adame people are indigenous people of Adama Island and the Bay of Bengals, which is between India and Myanmar. We also had the Patek people, where their result to crimes is interpersonal violence is strictly prohibited and violators may be ostracized. When there's a serious dispute, the community organizes a public discussion to resolve it. If resolution fails, the one of the parties will often leave for a while until emotion dissipate. Kevin Tucker wrote in 2018 there was no cases of homicide among the Patek. And they could corroborate this lack of no homicide with the exception of one woman who killed two of her children during bouts of insanity. And they could describe Patek society as extraordinarily peaceful. And I quote, the Patek prohibition of violence ensured that social life on campus was generally harmonious. No one had to fear being hurt by anyone else. This prohibition enhanced the personal autonomy of all Patek, one of their basic values because of it that no one could coerce another to do anything against their wishes. Even children had great freedom and independence. The prohibition of violence also contributed to the equality of the sexes by preventing men from using force against weaker women. The Batak people are indigenous people of Malaysia. We also had the Payaka. When someone behaves wrongly, one or two elderly women will mockingly reenact the event in practice called Moajo. The performance ends when the wrongdoer finally joins the rest of the audience and laughs. And the Bayaka are the indigenous people in Central Africa. Este, we also had the Cheran people, who the Honor Justice Councils oversee a community patrol of about 100 people, in addition to forest protection units. Members are rotation, inclusive of all genders and determined by neighboring assemblies. Campbell reported that so-called anti-communal conduct is typically resolved with meditation, repayment for damages, community service, or referral for rehabilitation or psychological treatment. The patrols are not viewed as law enforcement formation, but rather as an organized member of the community, selected and held accountable by the community, working to maintain the security reclaimed by the 2011 uprising. If you don't know who are, the Cherán people are basically the native people of Cherán, Mexico, who use indigenous values based also on anarchist principles. We also had the El Alto Bolivia neighborhood councils, which is mainly an indigenous population using anarchist principles and non-hierarchical structure in Bolivia. In El Alto, state police are often accomplices to thieves, rapists, and attackers. So neighborhood councils therefore consider recourse to the state justice system as unthinkable. When possible, the council resolve conflicts between neighbors. The collective self-defense group hang those outside houses that have been robbed as a symbolic warning to thieves that they will be killed when they are caught. Residents sometimes do kill thieves upon catching them. Sabachi writes there is no question that this form of adultos justice is too drastic, but residents are still looking for other options. If a thief is expelled, he sometimes comes back the next day with police on his side, seeking revenge of those who expel him. Police and thieves infiltrate community justice meetings and take revenge on residents based on what they say at the meetings. Saichi puts it that rural and Yamara tradition of communal justice may in time come to fruition in the cities. The rural Amayara communities, through popular assembly, elect the communal authority who will administrate punishment. Wherever possible, the aim is to reintegrate the person back to community. We also had the Cherokee people of the United States in pre-colonial times. The custom and public opinion sufficed to maintain order according to Cherokee historian Virginia Carney. Historically, at an annual Cherokee ceremony, all crimes except murder were forgiven. No one left the ceremony with grudges or animosity toward another. Writes William Mankiller, the first female chief of the Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation created police around the 1970s. They established a centralized government for the first time in response to the pressure from English settlers. But over time, they tried to go back to their pre-colonial, non-hierarchical, decentralized horizontal structures. We also had the Dine people, which, according to Robert Jesse, the former Chief Justice of the Navajo Nation Supreme Court, described the Dine approach to peacemaking. The first order of business the relatives who would do in peacemaking process is to get the bottom of the problem. In court, I will sue you for battery, and the state will say we have to prove all the elements of the crime and use the rules of the law to prove that you are guilty. That's besides the point. What matters here is why did this act happen in the first place? There's a reason why the harm has occurred. Let's deal with that. Maybe we have a history of problems between the two of us. If we can get the bottom of the problem, all other stuff will fall into place. The damage can be acknowledged by you. I can go away happy from the process, knowing that you said that you're not going to do it again. We also had the Hassa people, who their approach is the confrontation is avoided, and when an agreement cannot be reached, the conflicted party easily move away from each other. Occasionally, an assembly is called to work out a solution. There is no punishment. Rather than expelling an uncooperating member out of the campsite, the whole camp will move to a different site without that person. There is no offense, since people can simply ask for all their food they need. For 1967 to 1997, there were two known instances of Hassan killing on another Hassan. And if you don't know, the Hassan people are the indigenous people of Tanzania. We also call the Oroki Confederacy, which was the longest confederacy in pre-colonial United States and who independently developed democracy. It was an anarchist society which was not hierarchical. According to Anthony Waller, described how the Nosenan used different sections to respond to crime. Behavior was governed not by published laws enforced by police, courts, and jails, but by oral tradition, supported by the sense of duty, a fear of gossip, and a dread of retaliating witchcraft. Theft, vandalism, or robbery were almost unknown. Similarly, Gary Nash explained that without any laws, jails, or police, the Haudenosaunee maintained a strict sense of right or wrong. He who stole another's food or acted invariably in war was shamed by his people and ostracized for their company until he had atoned for his action and demonstrated to their satisfaction that he had morally purified. Now, the Hopi people, their approach was violence is rare among the Hopi because, according to anthropologist Fred Aiken, at the 1960, although the war chief of the village traditionally had responsibility to keep the peace, he had no punitive powers. As a way of de-escalating conflict, the Hopi performed a clown skit that mocks the parties involved. As Peter Godolus elaborated, and I quote, factions still exist within Hopi villages, but they overcome conflict through cooperation and ritual, and they use shame and leaving mechanism with people who are boastful or domineering. When disputes get out of hand, they use ritual clown skit at Kachina dances to mock the people involved. The Hopi offer an example of a society that gave up feuding and developed rituals to cultivate more powerful disposition. The images of clowns and dances being used to solve disputes give a tantalizing glimpse of humor and art as a means of responding to common problems. This is a world possibility more interesting than general assemblies or meditation processes. Artistic conflict resolution encourages new ways of looking at problems and subvert the possibility of permanent mediators or facilitators getting power by monopolies in the role of arbiters. In the Inuit people, alleged wrongdoers could be ostracized and in some cases driven out of the village. As we have already mentioned, in extreme cases they may be killed. Gossip and argument are effective techniques for lesser offenses. Occasionally, a severe crime might go entirely unpunished. Ordinarily, the kinsmen of a murdered man sought revenge and feuds of a limited sort had not been unknown. Inuit frequently settled disputes throughout competitive trials between opponents, with the audience decide who is victorious and therefore the winner in dispute. Through dispute, they might therefore engage in a wrestling match, or they might compete with one another in composing song with among the other things, attempt to outdo each other in an insult. Shaman contests which each other by demonstrating their religious power in grand spectacle, which could be highlighted otherwise a dreary and dark winter. While the Concomba people, they have an interesting approach. The Mipuni people, also known as the Pygmy, when they consider, like, for example, the most extreme crime, like murder, are not punished by martial law. So with the Concomba, if a man kills a fellow clansman, he whom himself dies. God said the Concomba will not suffer to live one who has killed his brother, and there is no ritual or medical protection for the fratricide. It believed that murders of fellow clans does not actually occur. Aside from the elders within a clan, another man of influence, a diviner who may build a reputation will extend over a wide area. Ordinary relationship between clans is one of the relative hostility, but those which are neighbors and others which may cooperate in ritual affairs have harmonious relations. Just groups do not feud, especially those who close ritual ties. Clans we have or claim to have or near kinship relation are also not supposed to indulge in feuds. Nevertheless, Thai report to closely related clans who feuded with one another was so notorious that it was already remembered among Kongomba for 30 years, and they used these to formally end hostilities. They used to engage feuds to do it by negotiating a ritual burial of the arrows of war. But feuds between clans and different tribes are endless, and there appear to be no formal means to bring peace. Apparently, those involved might eventually get tired of fighting. We also had the Mepuni people, again, where crime is rare. According to Turnbull, right, they among themselves, theft is virtually non-existent. For one thing, they have few possession, and for another, there is a necessity for theft except through laziness. They apply several sections for crime. For the less serious crime, the parties themselves solve the matter by either arguing out the case or engaging in a mild fight. For more serious crimes, the villager's young man will sound an instrument mimicking an elephant and attack the criminal's hut. Villagers respond to a very serious crime with ostracize and threats of supernatural retribution. The third book described an incident where the hunter named Cebu put his hunting net before others, cheating the others out of meat. They can respond by taunting and ridicule him, refusing to give him a chair and laughing at him. Few hours later, he apologized and gave up the meat he had caught. Turnbull comment, Sefu had committed what is probably one of the most serious crimes in the Pygmies' eyes, and one that rarely occurs, yet the case was settled simply and effectively without any evident legal system being brought into force. It cannot be said that Sefu went unpunished because for those few hours where nobody would speak to him, he was suffered the equivalent of as many days solitary confinement for anybody else, to have been refused a chair by a mere youth, not even one of the greatest hunters, to have been laughed at by women and children, to have been ignored by men. None of these things would be quickly forgotten. Without any formal process of law, Sefu had been firmly put in his place. It was unlikely he would do the same thing again in a hurry. In another instance, a man committing incest with his cousin, a very serious crime according to their tradition, the youth chased him out of the village. After 3 days, he returned to the village and accepted him back. For the Kurdish people, especially in the anarchist society of Rojava, they use communal commissions in charge of criminal justice. Rojava had their own civilian security force, or the Asayis. According to PL, Asayi reject the label police since police serve the state where they serve the society. The Asayi had to take 6-week training in non-violent conflict resolution and feminist training before they are allowed to touch a gun. The ultimate aim is to give police training to everyone to say they can eliminate professional police. Rojava has abolished capital punishment. Parallel to the Aishi, an all-woman security force called the Aishi J is alone responsible for crimes involving women, children, domestic abuse, and hate crimes, in addition to sharing the peacekeeping functions of the Coat Aishi. Rojava liberated areas still maintain prisons, and Human Rights Watch has accused Aishi arbitrary arrest, prisoner abuse, unresolved disappearances, or killings. While the San people of South Africa and Botswana, when two equal men fight each other, often over a woman, others move to physically separate the fighters. Humor often diffused tension. Lee observed anthropologists, serious they appear at the time, their anger quickly turns into laughter. In fights, we have seen paristic joking with each other when only few minutes before they were grappling. Some fights involve no weapons, others involve the deadly use of poison darts. As a last resort measure to stop a series of homicides, the Ikun occasionally will execute a responsible body. Lee quote at the some people's account of one execution, one EVDB walked right into Kao's camp and without saying a word, shot 3 hours in Kao, and Kao's people made no move to protect him. Lee reported that rape among the San people was extremely uncommon. Well, we also had the Assam people, the Santal people, for certain offenses, what could be a mixture of physical punishment. This case suggests legal sanction. Physical punishment or fines are, however, only imposed by the collective meeting of household heads and are arrived at mostly by consensus, so that such actions are in fact more in the nature of diffuse sections. They are not those enjoyed by the force of a select elite. The most extreme punishment which could be imposed of an individual or group is ostracism, which is a core one form and diffuse action. This seems largely to be imposed by the Council of the Confederation and in connection with the infractions of racial regulations. A person or group declared ostracized is first lampooned by the whole community, then the guilty would be shunned and treated as if non existent. The sentence of ostracism may be permanent or temporary. In the latter, return to the community may depend on the person's willingness to change his ways, his demonstration of repentance, and payment of the cost of the purification ceremony. For the Seminolese people in Florida, charged by the shaman, the annual court day assembly decide on punishment for the Seminolese who had committed crimes. The assembly typically exclude criminals from social function until they can demonstrate to the shaman they will obey the laws. Serious crimes who show no chance of being reformed were deemed outlaws and could be killed. Where the crime required immediate response, the clan member will meet and decide on a penalty. For the Wenda people in the United States, Father Aleman in the 17th century savagery was horrified that the Wenda did not punish criminals. However, he noted that the Wenda system of criminal justice was effective. David Graeber in his book The Dawn of Everything quote, rather than punish culprits, the Wenda insisted the culprit's entire lineage or clan pay compensation. This made it everyone's responsibility to keep their kindred under control. End quote. In the anarchist society of Chiapas, Mexico, by the Zapatista, which is the majority of the indigenous Maya population, each community has an elected volunteer patrol that's sometimes referred to as a community police agency. And I quote, while the Zapatistas still have police, it is quite distinct how we are used to think of. As Paulina Fernandez Cristilvier documents, they are neither armed, uniformed, nor professional. Similar to other authorities, police are elected by their community. They are not remunerated and do not serve and dysfunction permanently. Every community has its own police, while higher administration level, those of municipality and region do not. Decentralized and deprofessionalized police thus serve are under control of the community that elects them. Each community also has its own judicial council and according to Grabish and O'Hearn has a freedom to decide on the specifics of the punishment according to the local context. The Zapatistas say they almost never imprison criminals, instead they generally assign community service as punishment. Niels Parmeyer has observed prominent use of fines as punishment in Zapatista communities. There is an emphasis on transformative rather than punitive justice. The parties involved can negotiate in the compensation, and when the perpetrator had to be taken alone for a relative to pay the fine, participation of the family helps prevent further transgression. Jail has not been abolished. However, jail sentences normally do not exceed several days, and jail is usually just a locker room with partially open doors so that people can stop by to chat and pass food. Gustavo Esteva argued the Zapatista authority are the safest place in Mexico, and perhaps one of the safest places in the world. It's actually the only place in Mexico where the cartel has no influence. In the Zapatista community, land is communal owned and no one goes hungry, so one could argue that there is little to be gained from theft. With significant degree of control over their work, education, culture, and communities, the Zapatista experience comparatively low level of alienation. There are only 2 men in jail in the whole Zapatista area today, or at least as the 2010s. Esteva said in a 2013 talk there are 2 guys in jail because they committed the worst possible crime. They had cultivated marijuana. The problem in the case is not just the use of marijuana. The problem is they can give the government a pretext to attack the Zapatista and attack the community. The Sunni people hardly assists because Bennett reports from her observation there is no memory of homicide. Explained by Eric Fromm, he adds there is no evidence that the absent manifest hostility is due to intense repression of aggression, and hence there is no valid reason to question the picture of an unaggressive, life-loving cooperative system. We also have the Aboriginal Australians when they are conceiving with crime, responsible for organizing blood feuds or instigation others to impose a punishment on malefactors. The elders, however, had no power as police forces to enforce law. They can only encourage physical stronger men in the community trying to impose the punishment of the alleged culprit. Supernatural sanctions form an important part of the native Australians' technique to maintain order. and particular specialists in order to use it. In this technique, a magic pawn is pointed in the direction of one's enemy, who is of course informed that it has been done. Consequently, the victim is supposed to become ill and die. As Conan Long pointed out, this technique does achieve results. Victims appear to die because they simply resign themselves to death. Like the Inuit, the Australian had a part-time religious specialist or shaman. These undergo special initiation, often under the direction of the group of shamans who consulted a kind of rudimentary guild of craft specialists. The shaman had the power to counteract the magic of an enemy. They can also destroy another man. They also the major force for mobilizing and influencing popular opinion. According to Warmer, they are effective, respected as ceremonial leaders. In Madagascar, in the highlands, there is no police station in Arivonimanon. The closest thing to a police force was a unit of gendarmes who are buried somewhere in the west of town, mainly the patrol in the highways. In Varimonta, there was a man named Henry who terrorized women and stole from shops. The town decided to get together and kill him and received permission from Henry's father. So the next time Henry provoked a fight, the crowd appeared and tried to kill him. Henry escaped but did not return for many years. The most significant thing about violence around Arivoniamo was there was very little of it. Murder were shocking. Isolated events there were very few. For the Ikon people, they employ a variety of diffuse sections to punish people who commit offenses against communal law. Punishment for serious offenses include restitution, temporary exile, and public beatings. The pre-colonial times did not have a prison or a death penalty. There were four levels of courts. First, at the household level, the male head would punish a woman and a children for transgression of his rules. He would sometimes cover a court of his wives and oldest children. Punishment include denial of meals, beatings, or for repeated offenses, rubbing hot paper in the offender's eyes. Second, each village had a council of elders that tried to seize the village level. Third, the council of elders sometimes appealed to the village diviners in order to determine the identity of the offender. And finally, the council would sometimes ask the villagers' oracle, whose decisions were final. On a just solely and ever right, up until today, very few criminal cases were reached the post-colonial court system. Many criminal and juvenile delinquency cases are disposable uniformly in towns and villages. The Council of Elders serve as a trial court, and the Age of Grace serve as a main enforcement arm of village justice. And for the Lugapa people, este, killing within giant between subclans are compensated for, but beyond this level there is no compensation, and the fight that goes on between giants continue until third parties are able to intervene successfully or until the matter is forgotten. They use these, such fighting can go out between groups for some time, eventually when everyone gets tired of hostility. Elders from both sides, in addition to elders from related but unequal lineage, gather and negotiate peace. Should the parties continue to fight, the elders may invoke a collective curse upon them. And the tea people, este, they use what's called major local trading centers. This is a market association where the Tarways own the land, control the marketplace. The Legion Center control the market magic, important to securing peace in the marketplace, but it's also provide market police and judges, all for keeping order. Thus, why within this anarchic polity as circumscribed and restricted area governmental style polity. However, it should be emphasized that this police power is restricted to the marketplace and time and is not generally outside these boundaries. It suggested that the thief found a traditional technique of social control in other way for handling breaches of peace for the marketplace, so introduced the police. Este, they, however, do not invoke police, rather the market elder have ritual control over the market shrine and may invoke a supernatural power. And an unconfessed thief will be stoned to death by bees which inhabit the trees around the shrine. On confession is guilt, the thief provides the market elder with the guardian foal, which is sacrificed on the shrine. It shows that the indigenous societies understood that crime not only is more effective to prevent crime, it's better than cases.